They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. My name is Brittany Ming, I'm your host, and today we're talking to Tami Jacob. Tami graduated from Lynchburg College and takes great pride in being a first-generation college graduate in her family. She then went on to receive her master's in community counseling from Eastern Illinois University. Following a decade raising her 3 daughters, Tami went to law school with a desire to serve. When she isn't working tirelessly for the betterment of children and families, you can find her running alongside her loyal Australian Shepherd, sharing a good book with friends, or engaging in some friendly competition on the tennis court with her husband of 23 years. So welcome, Tami. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, Brittany.
So we are coming on today. We have been friends for a long time. We lived in the same town. When our kids were really little, we went to the same elementary school. And I have a story. Usually I jump right into my guest stories, but I actually have a little story to share of a conversation that we had in the school parking lot of the elementary school when our kids were in kindergarten. So you have 3 girls, right? How old are they now?
Yeah. So the oldest will be 20 in October. And then the kids that you're talking about, the middle one will be 16 and my youngest is 13.
Yes, so my boys are also 16. So your middle daughter, one of my sons, they were in Miss Klingenpill's class together
Yeah.
a million years ago. She was the best kindergarten teacher in the world.
Still, I think she is.
Yes, I know she is. She's amazing. So, but I remember us just chatting, like waiting for the kids to come out, and you were talking about going to law school. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is the coolest thing ever. And also, I was so in awe of you because I thought, wow, she's a mom. She has 3 little girls, and she's talking about pursuing her dreams after she's a mom. And it took a few more years to I think you went back to school after that conversation. But I just remember thinking, you were amazing and this was such a great goal, and I've been following your story ever since then. And you went to law school and you passed the bar and now you are working in a law firm, and I just wanted you to tell us that story today and the journey that it took to get to that place.
Well, I think part of it starts a long, long time ago. I was the first to even go to college in my family. So I certainly did not go to college I went to college thinking I would be an actress. And I left college wanting to go to law school. And I didn't really have the guidance that I probably needed. So I ended up going to grad school. And I had talked to some people that I was close to and that were in politics. And they said, I work with a lot of attorneys, and the ones that are really effective have a counseling degree. And so it made sense. I went and I got my counseling degree, and I had a 5-year plan. And when I met my husband, I told him, you were not in my 5-year plan. And one day he was sitting at my computer and he called me. I think I was working, and he was looking for computer paper, and I told him to open this cabinet, and he opened the cabinet and he's like, oh. And I was like, what? And he's like, I just found your 5-year plan. I am not in your 5-year plan. And I told you were not in my 5-year plan. So I thought I would immediately go. He's from Chicago. So we ended up getting married after I finished my master's, and I worked in patent law firms in Chicago. And that was a crazy life for this country girl from Virginia living in Chicago and working in these big law firms in Chicago. But I did it to see if I still wanted to go to law school. And working in patent law was definitely something I decided I did not want to do. Not that it would even be available to me because it's really for engineers and that sort of thing. But it just kind of always stuck with me. And we were told that we had very little chance to conceive children. And we really didn't even want kids. We got married at 23, right before our 24th birthday. And we thought we probably wouldn't even start trying for kids until our 30s because we had all these goals and things. But when they told us that likely we would not be able to have children, changed everything. And so we were going to fertility treatments and doing all these things. And long story short, we, after 4 years and surgeries and injections and all these things, we were able to conceive our first child. And her name is Faith because of that. And I was working for a very, very large firm called Latham and Watkins in Chicago in the Sears Tower, and had a big life. And I tried to keep that up for a while. I went down to 80%. I worked 4 days and I was off 3. And I was in this constant cycle of feeling inadequate when I started work on Monday as a worker, and then feeling inadequate as a mom on Friday when I went back to mothering. And it was just eating my soul away. And for people who weren't even entirely sure they wanted children until they were told they couldn't, and then we really, really wanted one. I just went home one day and I told my husband, I said, I really think I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And I was like, I'll live in a box if I have to. And he's like, well, if we stay in Chicago, you're going to have to live in a box because there's no way we can afford to live here with one income. It's just not even possible. So we ended up moving back to Virginia in Lynchburg, and that's where we met. And we ended up having 2 more children. And I actually applied to law school and got into law school in Chicago. This is before we got pregnant with Faith, because we were congruent planning. Like, if we have children, we'll do this. And if not, we'll do this. And because we ended up conceiving and having Faith, I didn't go. And I had all these LSAT books. And Michael and that's my husband, we were cleaning the basement one day. And he found all the LSAT books and he said, can we just throw these away? And I took a deep breath and I said, yeah, just throw them away. And he's like, okay. And I went around the corner and something just hit me. And I ran back in the room and I was like, don't throw them away. And he's like, we're not done yet. And I was like, I don't think we're done yet. And so 2018, we started making a plan. So if anyone is thinking of going back, there's a big plan involved. So for 10 years, we lived very, very within our means on one income. Before we started law school, we had 0 debt. We paid because we knew going to law school would put us in debt, and it definitely did. But we had a plan. We got rid of credit cards. We were paying things off and just really, really learning to live with one income. And one night I got to the point, I think I was talking to a friend, and I got to the point where I literally fell on my knees and I was praying, and I just said, Lord, if this is meant for me, I need you to move it, or I need you to remove it from my heart, because it had been with me at that point 20 some years of not going. And it was just weighing on me. And it was always, I worked for CASA of Central Virginia, and I was their development director. And this is the type of job that people would love to get and then retire from. And I was not feeling like, and I was good at it. And I love the people and I love the organization. I love the mission. I was still helping children, which is what I felt called to do. But there was that quote that a ship is safe at shore, but it's not what a ship is meant for. And it just kept eating at me. Like, I just kind of had this feeling like that's not what I've been called to do. Like, I've been called so long ago to do this. And so I prayed that. And that night, I just was like, go now. I just kept hearing go now. And so I turned to my husband and I was like, I just think I need to go to law school now. Like, I've already taken the LSATs because I've been planning. So I was studying for the LSATs. I took the LSATs, much to the chagrin of my friends, because me taking LSATs was interfering trips and fun things that they had planned. And they're like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I really wanted to work in prosecution, and I really wanted to prosecute sexual offenders of children. That was really, really why I wanted to go to law school. And I went in with such a passion for that. I worked as an intern in the prosecutor's office for about 9 months, and I can't explain it. I just kept thinking, like, this is not where I belong. These are not my people. And it was terrifying because I spent all this money going to law school. I thought this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I had an opportunity with someone local to join his family law firm. And I really enjoyed learning family law. I felt like I was good at it. I helped some of my friends go through some of the hardest times in their lives, either with custody battles or divorce. And I just thought, this is probably where God wants me. I really could see how my counseling fit into family law. But at the end of the day, I just constantly had this that something was missing feeling. And a friend of mine from law school, one of my best friends from law school, had went to law school to do immigration law. And I just thought that I just had no interest in it whatsoever. And she said, I just feel, and God will not let me, like, I just feel like you're supposed to be here with me. And so I made all my charts, like, my old firm starts at 8 or 9, and this one starts at 8. My old firm is 15 minutes away from my house. This is an hour and 15 away from my house. Just on paper, it's so many things did not make sense. And I had decided I wasn't going to take the job, and it wasn't worth the risk of moving because I had no idea what I would be jumping into. And I went for a walk. I said, okay, I'm going to go for a walk, and then I'm going to call and tell them that I'm not going to take this job. And when I went for a walk, I ran into someone who I actually had referred to that immigration firm. Our church is very close to a Haiti missions orphanage and school. And this particular girl she was the principal, and she was the daughter of the person who started the organization. And she ended up marrying someone from our church who was constantly going down, and they fell in love when he would go down. And so when she came here to America, I sent them to that firm. And she was 9 months pregnant, waddling down the street, and just all the things the chance things that had to work out for that, like that she would be on the street at the same time as me. And I'm in a random part of the day, really pondering this question, whether I should take this job or not. And I just asked her what she thought of the firm. And she was like, oh, it was excellent. They changed our life. And then I'm thinking, there's this soul growing in her that wouldn't even exist without this firm. And I was like, oh, okay. And I decided that minute to take it and just take a leap of faith and see what it was like. And so not only did I go to law school later, but I ended up in a part of law that I would have never went to law school for. But now I'm so completely fulfilled and found like a passion that I have in life and the families I get to help. And truly, every day, even the hard days, I'm like, I get to do this. Like, I have such an appreciation of the families and the people. And I had a family come in the other day, and the 2-year-old little girl, and I'm like, because of me, like, her daddy gets to stay here and she's going to love him, and just so many things like that. But that's kind of the long end of it.
I love hearing that. And I love like hearing that you're so passionate about your work now, like through that long journey. That's such a special story, and I'm really privileged to hear it.
Still like in awe of it sometimes. Like, it just doesn't seem real. It's just because looking back now, it makes sense. Like, my husband is a first generation American. His dad came over from Germany when he was 21. And in fact, the first time he told me he loved me, he told me in German. And then I was like, oh, you know me well enough to love me, but not well enough to know that I also speak German. And, they're just all these crazy things. And it just, so many things make sense now looking back that this is where I would be. But luckily, I'm not 100% in charge of my life.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
That's
those twists and turns of your story, you just are surprised by those.
Yes.
And thankful and grateful. So you started law school in 2018. Is that what you said?
I did.
How old were your girls when you started?
Goodness. That's a lot of math, Brittany.
How many years ago was that? Okay, that's like 6 years ago.
Yes. Part of it was when we decided that I would do this. is that everyone was at an age where they could feed themselves and go to the bathroom by themselves. And, there were times just a few years before my youngest couldn't do those things. She definitely was able to feed herself earlier than most children. It's kind of her thing. She loves to cook, and we have pictures of her like 2, 3 years old, like making food for her sisters. That's just a thing for her. But it was a choice for our entire family. We had to talk about it, and we talked about the ROI, the return on investment. And it was a point at my age. So I knew I would be 45 when I graduated law school. And I knew I would either be 45 with a law degree or 45 without one. And it was inevitable. 45 was coming. And so we had to decide as a family, like, are we going to do this? And this is kind of crazy, but in order to prove that we could handle law school, I trained for a full Ironman. I trained for the Beach to Battleship Ironman. And it took a lot. It was a family thing. Like, I would be gone on Saturdays because I'm biking. And so it's like a 2.4-mile swim, a 140-mile bike, and then a 26.2 run afterwards. So you start early in the morning and you don't finish until the night. You get 17 hours to do it. And my goal was to try to finish within 15. And I finished in like 14:58. So I was like,
That
right
is an
there
amazing time. Oh my gosh.
But it was a family affair. It was, everyone had to support mom through this. And I'm like, if they can support me through this, it was only a year commitment, then I knew that because our family really, we're more of a team is how we feel. Then, we support each other, and that's what we do. And after that, I thought, I think they really would be able to help me. My husband, after being a stay-at-home mom, I was the one in charge of everything for the girls' schools. We've always been pretty good about chores. Like, no one has like a set chore. If you can do it, you do it. We don't yell at each other if there are dishes in the sink. That's just never been our thing. We're like, if he has energy to do dishes, he will. If he knows if I have energy to do dishes, I will. And if the dishes are in the sink, we obviously don't have energy.
Yeah.
We don't have it to give. And so our relationship was pretty strong in that manner. We started the girls at 10 years old. They have to wash their own clothes. So we already were on a good pace for like everyone sustaining themselves and that sort of thing. But when I started law school, he was in charge of the girls completely. And you may remember in 2020, right when I was in the middle of law school, that meant homeschooling. And he luckily he works in the nuclear industry. So we felt very safe during COVID as far as jobs go. And he was able to work from home, and they just sat on the kitchen counter with him or the kitchen table while he was working, and they did their work too. But I would have never been able to do that if he didn't have a flexible job and he didn't have the capacity to homeschool them, because me schooling them and schooling myself, but some really interesting ripples. You have to have pretty good study skills for law school. And my oldest, she learned so many of my study skills in high school, and she was able to execute those. And I thought, this took me half my life to learn these study skills and this organization. And she has it coming out of high school, and seeing how that has affected who she is as a person, and how diligent she is and dedicated she is to her studies, and just things that she thinks nothing of, it's really interesting. We set up desks in our basement. I had a desk and she was in there with me, and we just loved being down there together doing school together, because they would see me. I mean, I was up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning finishing school. For every hour of class in law school, there's usually 3 hours of reading prior. And that's truly reading. And you get faster. But one thing they tell us is law school through the 3 years doesn't get easier. It's kind of like if you go into a gym and I ask you to pick up a 100-pound barbell, you just couldn't do it out of nowhere. But if I gave you a 5 and then a 10 and then a 20, and then you just kept building, you don't use any greater effort to pick up the 100-pound barbell, but you've done all the work to get there, right? You couldn't just do it, but you can build yourself up to it. And law school was kind of the same way. When I first started, I would set timers, and I think I gotten up to being able to read for 20 minutes without being distracted. And by the end, I could read for hours without distraction, just complete focus. But it was lifting that dumbbell, doing the work and getting through it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I can imagine that was a huge transition, especially going from a stay-at-home mom to such an intense program. So how do you feel like you changed or shifted your mothering during that time? And because like you said, your husband took a lot like over this girls' school stuff and you had planned for that. But like when you were in the middle of it, how do you think your mothering changed during that time?
I think it's really interesting because I've always been kind of an extra mom. Like we have big, you know this because you know me, but we have big parties. We celebrate every holiday. Like life is big, and we just try to enjoy it so hard. And I think for the girls, when I was in law school in the beginning, it was hard because, you know, a movie would come out and we're not decorating for it or something like that. But then when COVID hit and I didn't have to actually physically go to school, I was still able to. Trolls, the movie comes out, and so I'm decorating, and we're going to celebrate, and we're going to watch Trolls the movie, and we're all in, right? We're going to make Trolls cupcakes, and we're going to do this whole thing. And that is certainly not my husband's area. Like he just gives that all to me and he lets me run with it. And so I think in the beginning, it was hard because I always, for each girl's birthday, I would paint the front door, our glass door. And I remember it was the night before and I was going to go paint Gracie's door. And Gracie's door had been painted her entire life because she was the child I started with on her first birthday. And I went in the basement and we have a whole craft room. Like we're pretty artsy people. And Gracie, who is also artsy and still is, had used all my paintbrushes and did not rinse them off. And all the brushes were dry. And I kind of lost my mind for a minute and I was crying and I was like, that's it. I'm not doing your door. And I just was just so defeated because I had plans. I worked really, really, really hard to give a couple hours so I could paint her door for her birthday. And then when I went to execute it, I couldn't.
Mhm.
And so that year, Grace did not get her door. And it was a big lesson for her. It was a lesson for me. It's still one of those things like I regret. I should have just drove myself over and bought new paintbrushes. But at the time I was, really, I think, offended, like my time is so precious and you're like working against me and, that sort of thing. And I think so her birthday is in May and Mother's Day is right around there. And so for Mother's Day, she bought me new paintbrushes.
Oh,
And then I thought, man, I wish I like had painted her door. It was a whole thing. And so there were like things that would have been very, very different if I was a stay-at-home mom. I would have thought nothing of going to just buy new paintbrushes to paint her door and just little things like that. But we really, really work on making our girls independent almost to a fault. So they were always encouraged, even as mommy's going to law school, like make your own food and things like having an air fryer. And, there's technology has helped change. We were microwave kids. Our kids are air fryer kids. Everything's crispy and yummy for them. And ours was always soggy and like, but just things like that. But I think in some ways it made parenting better because I mean, I don't want to cry, but my kids are really, really proud of me when I graduated.
yeah.
And that was really, really special. And it was very much like I made it known to them that I could not have done it without my husband, without them, without their support. Like it was again a team effort. Like um, if I was studying, they would bring me food downstairs. They just really took care of me during that time. And it seems so silly because when you're in it, it is a lifetime. But looking back, I'm like, it was only 3 years. It was only 3 years. But I very much knew that my grandchildren would only know that I was an attorney. That would kind of kept me motivated. Like my children would know that I was a stay-at-home mom. And for them, it's a big lesson. Like they want to do all these things. And I'm like, I truly believe you can do all the things. You just can't do all the things at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I made time to be a stay-at-home mom, and now I make time to be the attorney. And I see other women who are my age, they're obviously much further in their career, but I don't think I would have changed it for anything. Like I needed that in my life, and because of being home with them, I think we were very close. Joy, my youngest, she really doesn't even remember me being a stay-at-home mom. I just find that so interesting because the other girls are like, you don't remember all the things we used to do? And she's like, no. And I'm like, wow, okay. I'm like, so maybe it'll relate different with her, but I know even still, they're very proud of me and how hard I worked, and, tell their friends, like, what do your parents do? Oh, well, my mom's an attorney, like they love that. And I think that's really cool. And I'm proud of them because, they survived it with me. So they truly, like my 1L year, I cried every single night. I would sit at the table doing my homework and I would cry. I would have like 15, 20 minutes and I would just cry. And then the second year I cried every other night. And then by the third year, I was only crying once a week. And then it moved into like once a month. And then I was, getting my footing, I guess, and felt like I could do it. But I had this thing where I felt like I was the Black Widow of law school for a while because most of the kids there are in their 20s, and I would make friends with them. I think belonging to a church, that is one thing that we give our children, is those intergenerational relationships. And it's just something you think nothing of if you've been raised in a church. Like I have older friends, I have younger friends, you think nothing of it. So being friends with 20 somethings just didn't really faze me. And they would leave because at my law school, we would lose about 30% of our starting class. And I became a mentor, and I had another mom who was older, and she brought her child from Texas up, and she didn't end up making it through. And I just felt like it was a constant reminder that you're making it through. Like you got this, keep going, keep going, keep going, so that's, that was a lot to answer your question, but
No, I think that's so good. And I just love how I remember reading after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. I remember reading, there were a lot of articles that came out about her, but I remember reading one and it talked about how she was able to achieve all that she did because her husband was so supportive of her.
yes.
And I've thought, and I think the article was like, can women have it all? Yeah, yes, but only if they have, like a supportive spouse. If you want to have if you want to have a family, or you do have a family, and you want to pursue a dream or a goal or a degree or a career field, you have to have support from your family. And I just love that your story illustrates that so much because you guys planned for this. You had the trial period of the triathlon to like test it out. And then your girls supported you through that. And, hearing that you cried every night and then, at every other night and then once a week, like it shows that a metaphor that you used about lifting the weights, how hard it was. And then you got emotionally stronger, but your family also was supportive of you through that whole time. And it just shows that they believed in your goal. And I just, I think you show how it can work, even though it can be crazy hard, that if you have a dream in your heart and you're like, I really want this, you can make it happen. So I just thank you for sharing that and sharing your story because I know it wasn't easy, but I think with the right supports, women don't have to give up on their dreams, even if it doesn't happen when you're 22 or 25, like when you're 45.
Yeah.
You
And your
still
dream
have,
will change. I
yeah.
mean, that my middle one that, Gracie, she will go from I want to do business to I want to do fashion. I'm like, do it all. You might, I mean, maybe not at the same time, and maybe it'll come, but like whatever you're passionate about, just do whatever makes you happy. And I was really blessed when I graduated law school. We were still in that weird COVID era. So we were outside. It was so beautiful. But usually you're hooded and because it's like a PhD, so but it's a JD, a Juris Doctorate, and you're hooded by a staff member, usually a judge or someone who's at your law school, but they let us pick a family member. And so my husband was able to hood me. And I just thought that I liked so much better because he was the one who went through it with me, not whoever was assigned to hood me. And it just meant the world to me. And those pictures will always be because it wasn't like I did it. It was for sure we did it. And my husband has, from day one, just really been in the business of making my dreams come true. He just is so supportive, and I'm just so blessed by him constantly. And this year we'll actually be married 24 years, and we got married in 2000. So it's very easy for us to keep up with.
Yeah, that's great. You're like easy math. There's no subtracting here.
Yes. So, yeah.
So what advice would you give to another mom or any woman who's listening to this? Maybe she has little kids. Maybe she's been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and that dream is just in her heart. And maybe it requires another degree or a big life change. What advice would you give to her?
Well, I would say that it's always worth that extra prayer to either remove it from your heart or move it. Like it needs to move or be removed, because sometimes maybe it's not going to work out. And I think that's okay too, because that just means there's something else waiting for you out there. But when you have that dream, that nagging dream, you can't, especially when it's such a financially costly dream, you have to really look at your return on investment and figure out, depending on your age. For me, being in my 40s, I had to figure out how many more years I would be working, what would be my likely pay if I went with any other job, and then how much I would be coming out with student debt. And it was really a lot of mathematical equations like to figure out. And there was that sweet point, like you either go now or it's not worth your return on investment. Like you actually be putting your family in more harm. And so you have to be very diligent with that and watch your time and make sure you have a really, really good support system. Maybe test it. I don't know if an Ironman would be for everyone, but there's something that symbolizes an Ironman in everyone else's life. Like, if I do this, will I have my family support? And then just believe in yourself, because I mean, I was born in a trailer. I was first going, to college in my family. And if you had told me as a kid that I would even think that I could go to law school, I wouldn't have believed you. But there was something that belief in myself, like I know I can do this. Like I'm needed. I truly am just here to make the world a better place at this point, right? Like I'm not here to own houses in different places and do things. That's not what I went to law school for. So yeah, that would be my advice.
That's good. Well, to end our time, I have this question, and
Okay.
it can be anything big or small, but what are you doing to enjoy your life this week?
I travel a lot. I travel to different courts all in Virginia, and I have really good audible books. And I'm deep into the Court of Thorns and Roses series right now. And so I'm just super happy, like can't wait to get in the car so I can read my book, listen to my books.
I
And
listened to that whole series on audiobook and I was so thankful that they were so long. I did not want it to end. I'm just like 23 hours, sign me up for this.
yeah. Yes.
So
And there's like 15 books because there's 2 other worlds, right, with her,
yes,
with Sarah Jonas.
I
So
love that so much. That's like the
that,
best reason to like have a long drive is so you can listen to
yes.
your
And I
audiobook.
just cannot wait to get in the car. I can't wait to go to work because I can't wait to listen to these books. And it just makes me so happy.
Well, thank you, Tami. I loved hearing your story. I can't wait to share this with everyone. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for asking, Brittany. I really appreciate it. I hope that it inspires someone and they just change their life.
Me too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com.